Hey guys, welcome back to Weekends. Anna and Nando with you. So Nando, it's time for our Salt segment. And
Yes.
You proposed the topic this week, so I'm really curious what your take is. It's on Alan Dershowitz, good friend of Jeffrey Epstein, good friend of Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Epstein's girlfriend.
And good friend of me and
he
you.
No, definitely not a good friend of me at least, and I highly doubt good friend of yours. But so Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, has been arrested. She was found in New Hampshire, of all places. I thought maybe she would be in a different country, but she is now facing some pretty serious charges pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein and how she assisted him, allegedly, on preying on underage girls. With that said, Alan Dershowitz, who seems to be a very good friend of Ghislaine Maxwell, has penned an op-ed in The Spectator where he says, the Ghislaine Maxwell I know, like every other arrested person, she must be presumed innocent. And so I'll give you a few excerpts from what he writes. She stands accused of serious crimes allegedly committed a quarter of a century ago. Like every other arrested person, she must be presumed innocent. Many in the public will presume her guilty because of the portrayal of her in the Netflix series about Jeffrey Epstein. But no one should believe anything they saw in that series because it was based largely on the accounts of two women with histories of making dubious accusations. Now, since we're talking about people with dubious histories, Alan Dershowitz relied on smearing the reputations of women who came forward with these types of accusations in the past. So just keep that in mind for context. He mentions specifically Virginia Roberts Guttray, who has accused Prince Andrew of sleeping with her or basically statutory rape because she was underage. And so, you know, I tried to watch that Netflix series. It was just too disturbing, to be honest with you, Nando. So like after an episode and a half, I was like,
Yeah.
The stuff I cover for news is disturbing enough. I don't need to be consuming this during my free time. But what do you make of this op-ed?
Well, it's just... So Alan Dershowitz is just a very funny character in American life. And he's almost like a Zelig figure, you know, like the Woody Allen documentary Zelig, where he just kind of like exists in all the little episodes of the last 40 years. Like he's just kind of there in some way. Like he was OJ's lawyer, you know, he's just like, he gets trotted out in front of the TV cameras every time there's like some issue with Israel to defend like the most hawkish position, pro-Israel position. He's you know, he was Harvey Weinstein's lawyer. Like he just is there kind of in the upper echelon of our ruling class, existing as this kind of figure that we get to glimpse at because he, for whatever reason, loves to be quoted in the media and loves to be public about all this stuff. Like, you know, the opening paragraph of that article that he wrote in The Spectator is like, I was introduced to Ghislaine Maxwell by the Rothschild family, and I've only ever hung out with her in front of the Clintons and Nobel Prize winners, and like, you know, it's like, you know, he's basically like giving away the game right there, that he's just this kind of figure that exists within the ruling class, probably because he's willing to do all the dirty work for them. But he can't really help himself, so he always wants to be out there in the public, in a way being a sort of lightning rod, like, or a shock absorber, right? Like I think maybe he plays the role of like, I'm gonna go out there, I'll be the front line of defense, I'll take all the hate because I'm this weird, you know, person who doesn't mind that, or maybe gets off on it or something, but I'll absorb all the hate while you guys can just stay private in the background, in the shadows. You know, I'll cover for you. So yeah, because, you know, there's no other explanation to me as to why he constantly puts himself out there like this. Like he tweeted out like, well, you know, I hope there are videos that Epstein took about all the sex charges, because you'll find that I'm not in it. So like, please, law enforcement, find the videos, you know. And it's like, it's just like he's almost like, he reminds me of the Jinx documentary with Robert Durst. Like he's like itching to confess, you know, and he's just kind of
that's an interesting take,
towing around, you know, like and not really going it. But yeah, I mean, that's I think what's going on kind of on a deeper level is that, like, Alan Dershowitz, who's like a hilariously pathetic human being, somehow he's like disgusting, like he's just like an awful human being, like, but somehow he's in this like ultra elite club that you and I are not a part of.
Yep.
And I think that's why. I think that's what he does. It's like he's like, I will bear the brunt, so that you guys can be in the shadows and protected.
Well, he was one of the lawyers representing Jeffrey Epstein, who secured that what was it, non-conviction conviction, if I remember it correctly. So he got Jeffrey Epstein, let him get off with like a state charge, so he wouldn't have to deal with a lengthy federal conviction and sentence. And he also has put out some pretty questionable things in regard to statutory rape that I can't even believe he published this and then doubled down on it later. So in 1997, he wrote an op-ed that argued against statutory rape laws, writing, quote, "There must be criminal sanctions against sex with very young children, but it is doubtful whether such sanctions should apply to teenagers above the age of puberty, since voluntary sex is so common in their age group." And then he suggests that 15 was a reasonable age of consent, no matter how old the partner was. So in his mind, and he put this on paper in 1997, he argued, as long as the girl's 15, doesn't even matter how old the guy is. He could be like 65, sleeping with a 15-year-old, and that no one should question that. No one should find an issue with that. And when that came up in the middle of the Jeffrey Epstein story, like really blowing up, he decided to double down, and he said the following: "I stand by the constitutional, not moral argument I offered in my controversial op-ed. If a 16-year-old has the constitutional right to have an abortion without state or parental interference, how could she not have the constitutional right to engage in consensual sex?" So,
Again, he's begging to confess, right? Like, he's just begging to confess. It's just like he's putting it out there. And I think he serves this sort of almost like a vanguard party role for the ruling class. Like, he's the guy putting himself out there. Maybe he has like some sort of weird humiliation fetish or something that he likes to just get this like public hate. But he's the one putting himself out there to cover for the sick, disgusting pedophiles that actually rule our society, right? That's just like, it's so painfully obvious to me in some ways. Obviously, you can never prove that this is all just wild speculation, but that's like what I think is going on. Where it's worth remembering, like Dershowitz, who was defending Jeffrey Epstein, was one of the guys who got him that plea deal, and as part of that plea deal, they gave immunity not just to Jeffrey Epstein, but to anyone who was a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein that was either named or not named in the original indictment, right? Like, it's insane. Like, I don't even know that that's legal. Like, to just like, anyone who was involved in this specific thing is immune, and everyone who we don't even know, like, we're not even talking about in this specific charge, who was also involved, is also immune. Like, the brazenness of it is, it's almost like the last segment, right? The brazenness of just like, they can, with a wave of a pen, just funnel trillions of dollars just seemingly out of magic, out of thin air, just trillions of dollars. Here you go. No strings attached. Just do with it what you will. Buy a yacht, buy a private island to do weird sex cult things on.